13 times UEFA Champions League winners have struggled since Ronaldo's departure in 2018. To prove my point, here's a quick wrap-up of their seasons leading up to the 21-22 season. In the 18-19 season, they would lose in the UCL to Ajax in the round 16 and finish all the way down in third in the Spanish league. The 19-20 season would have some rather large improvements as they would chase Barca in the league for the entire season, and with the help of COVID-19 putting things on hold, they'd be able to take the crown of Spain once again. However, in the Champions League, they'd still lose to Manchester City in the round 16. The 2021 season was a very tough one for Real. They would be riddled with injuries, finished second in the Liga, losing out to Real Madrid on the last day, but did make it all the way to the semi-finals in the UCL, losing out to eventual winners Chelsea FC. And although those results might not sound too bad, the team would finish the season without a single trophy, and what would follow was a ton of heavy departures. Both of their top-class starting centre-backs would leave the club captain Ramos would leave on a free to PSG, and Rafa Varane would leave for a relatively small price from Manchester United. To top that off, they would let go of promising Norwegian talent Martin Odegaard to Arsenal, but he's not that good anyway, so who cares. The team wouldn't bring in much besides Bayern's defender and Austrian international, David Alaba, and young midfielder wonderkid from Rennes, Eduardo Camavinga. They had chased Mbappe the entire summer, but in the end, it didn't seem to happen. But it's fine, I'll be here in a year's time anyway. And more importantly, probably the most important thing, they had lost Zinedine Zidane as a manager, following a trophyless season, and now had to go for someone else. The choice under the circumstances was then Everton coach Carlo Ancelotti. And under the circumstances, I guess it did make sense. However, the fans weren't too pleased as they felt like they should have gone for something new instead. It just seemed that the club was praying for the past to rewrite itself, and inshallah, but the fans went along with it anyway, even though it wasn't the desired decision. Going into the season, the expectations weren't too grand, but they did exist as they probably were gonna run for La Liga and try to at least make the quarters of the UCL. Less important, but there was another two competitions which they were going to be playing in, which was the Copa del Rey and the Spanish Super Cup. Now, with this video, I will do my best to cover just the UCL, but I will cover the other competitions mildly, mainly talking about the key games, derbies, and overall matchups that are worthy of note. Of course, before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like, do all that jazz. And anyways, enough feedbagging. Let's get into the actual video. They were drawn into a UCL group with Inter, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Sheriff Tiraspol, which all seemed like a very easy group for them that would really be no problem. First up, they had Italy's own Inter Milan at the San Siro. It was a difficult game, but they would win 1-0 through a late goal from Brazilian winger Rodrigo. This was their first UCL game with the crowd since early 2020, however that did not seem to scare them very much. Overall, Real just got the probably toughest game out of the way with a deserved, but still quite scrappy victory. Next up, they had to make easy work of Sheriff Tiraspol at home. The boys in white would then stuff them with about 4 goals, and then they... My production team's talking to me right now. What fuck you mean they lost? What? To the surprise of all, Moldovan side Sheriff Tiraspol would win 2-1 with their keeper having that sort of Iker Casillas, Buffon, Neuer energy altogether. This loss had obviously stunned them so much that they did even go on to lose the next game in the league to Espanyol, with the same result being their downfall. This would solidify most people's predictions that Real Madrid are still recovering and aren't really proper challengers for the UEFA Champions League. The team would then return from the international break and get their focus back on as they would absolutely batter Shakhtar in Donetsk. This would of course not only allow them to get back on track, it was a proper battering. I mean, it totally fucked them up. And they just scored a beauty, but that's less important. Then they had to rerun everything in the exact same order, starting with Shakhtar again. This time around, Los Blancos would have the home advantage, and although not as convincing, they would still get the victory in the end. Then, meanwhile, the first El Clasico derby of the season would be played, and Real Madrid would be victorious following a 2-1 victory. The goals coming from a debut goal for Alaba and a goal from veteran Lucas Vazquez. This would secure the win for them and have them stay top of the Spanish League. Just so you know, for the rest of the video, I'll be referring to the Spanish League as La Liga, don't get confused. The next match was on the road in Moldova, where the team would get their revenge and end up winning 3-0 against Sheriff Tiraspol. This would secure the team's passage through to the knockout phases, with a match against Inter still left in hand. Now, second place just wasn't an option for Real Madrid, as they absolutely destroyed Inter 2-0 to solidify their first place spot. To wrap everything up, Real had 5 wins in the group stage and only 1 loss, which came at the hands of, well, the one you'd least expect. Some time was given, and then the round of 16 was drawn, and Real would be paired up against one of the favorites for the entire tournament and champions of France, Paris Saint-Germain. Real, despite their decent start to the season, were still marked as outsiders for this one, because with such attackers as Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, Real just wasn't going to be able to cope, surely. And of course, I'm doing some math here. If PSG was to win, they would also prove to Mbappe that Real is a step below them, and that moving would stagnate his chances of winning the UCL. Therefore, a lot of people mark this as the Mbappe derby. In the meanwhile, January was up, and Real would pick up their first trophy of the season, the Spanish Super Cup, after a 3-2 win against Barca in the semi-finals, and then a 2-0 victory against Athletic Bilbao. Real have now picked up 1 out of a possible 4 trophies for the season. Then they showed their lack of being able to complete anything in the Copa del Rey, as they would lose to their earlier mentioned Bilbao in the quarterfinals. Now, I know that doesn't sound great, but there were some other good results in the league, and the team would go into the match against Paris with some mild optimism. Heading to the Parc des Princes, Real Madrid would have to instantly play on the back foot, with PSG putting pressure on them constantly. The first half would give Los Blancos no real chance to score or even do anything of note, and the pattern would continue. Not much change in the second half, as PSG would dominate Real like they had a fetish, and eventually the host would get a penalty. Lionel Messi, as per usual, the fear of a lot of Real Madrid's fans, would step up to take it, and I think everyone was kind of shook. In a very funny sequence of events, Messi would miss the penalty, and literal moments later, Ronaldo would score in his game for Manchester United. Funny. Shot after shot after shot from PSG, but all with no success, and it seemed like the game was going to end 0-0, which worked in Real's favor. But then, the 94th minute struck, and the one, the only, Kylian Mbappe scored at last and would light up the Parc des Princes. Real's reaction would obviously suffice.
Bro, fucking
Hey, yo, don't let him do that
I've
to you,
been
bro.
there for you since day one!
And Mbappe could just be the with another leg still left to go. It's pretty funny. There were arguments on Twitter whether Mbappe would celebrate should he score against Real Madrid. He absolutely knee slid. I'm hoping I'm able to show you the footage, but it was more than a celebration. The build up to the second leg was interesting. Real Madrid would do fairly well, while PSG was pretty questionable. Come March, Benzema had a score to settle. They had a big advantage in the fact that this was held at the Bernabeu, and their second big advantage was that when Mbappe was a kid, he would skip school to go watch Aisha Speed play. Mbappe would score, and he was offside, unfortunately, and then later, he said, "I'll fucking do it again." Although a very good goal, that one was given as an offside as well. He scored a third, and although the referee did take a good look at it, he did not get his hat-trick of offside goals, and this one actually stood as real. This would have PSG up 2-0 on aggregate, and Real Madrid was shaken. Real Madrid would go into the halftime tunnel and have their team talks while a goal behind, and on aggregate, 2 goals behind. I'm not sure what Carlo Ancelotti said to them, but they finally started playing on level. In the 61st minute, Donnarumma would decide that little funny and give the ball away as Benzema netted his first of the day. Real were back on track now. It would take some time, but in the 76th minute, Modric would play an absolutely unreal pass to Karim Benzema, who bagged the second for both himself and for Real Madrid, tying the game up. And as they were showing the replay on TV, Real launched another attack, and all you're really able to see is a questionable clearance or whatever that's supposed to be. Can someone tell me what that's supposed to be? Whatever it was, it would go straight to Karim, and he'd side-foot it as the roof came off the Bernabeu, as Real Madrid completed an incredible comeback. Benzema's hat-trick changed the game from being 2-0 to Paris to being 3-2 for Real Madrid in a matter of literal minutes. Messi started actively shaking as he was getting flashbacks of certain events in the past. Real Madrid would manage to stick through, and at the end would go on to get an aggregate 3-2 victory over the PSG frauds. PSG fans would claim that this is a foul, and just as much as their president, who would attack some of the Real Madrid staff while in the tunnel. But also give Dark Lord Perez full confidence that he could sign Mbappe next summer. How fucking foolish. Once all their round of 16 ties finished, the quarters and semis were drawn, and Real would have the tougher end of the bracket. They were going to have to face UCL winners of the past season, Chelsea. And should they win against the Blues, they'd either have to face their arch rivals in Atletico Madrid and Spanish champions, or English champions. They were fucked either way. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, if you were a Real Madrid fan, you'd probably want to hang yourself. Right before the Chelsea match on the 20th of March, Real would face Barcelona, and despite their excellent form, the fact that they were playing a level above them, instead of training and preparing for the match, they were promoting merch, and then ended up losing 4-0. That's when I grabbed the gun. Real Madrid would get their heads back to the game very quickly and head to Stamford Bridge, London, to have that big tussle with Chelsea. Tussle, what a fucking word. Real Madrid would wipe their ass with the Blues, following another back-to-back hat-trick from Benzema. Although Kai Havertz was able to pull one back, the final result was still 3-1 to Real Madrid. Following that performance from Karim, he would be the first person to do that since Cristiano Ronaldo in the 2016-17 UCL season. And I mean, he did that with Real Madrid as well. Although an unlikely mission, Chelsea still had a point to prove at the Bernabeu, hoping for a comeback of absolutely epic proportions. That comeback would live, or at least the dream of it would, and for a while. Chelsea would score one, and then two, and then score a third to actually give themselves the lead on aggregate. What no one thought was possible was really happening right in front of their eyes. Real Madrid deciding to finally wake up from the deep slumber they've been put in. Rodrigo would finally get the ball from Modric in a spectacular way and net one to send the teams to extra time. Now, I couldn't really tell you what it was, but Chelsea just did not have that same energy in the extra time, and Benzema would be the one to score and send the boys in white to the semi-finals. Although they did lose that game 3-2, overall, thanks to the last game, they had gotten an aggregate score of 5-4. I'm sure Real Madrid, even with their dislike of Atletico Madrid, was probably hoping that they'd beat Manchester City. However, that just wasn't going to happen. Man City, to no one's shock, won, and, well, they were next up. I think we all figured this would be a probably really fun game, both teams playing attacking football. However, this was a bit almost too much. Real Madrid were tasked to head to the Etihad to play in front of the away fans. Or at least a few of them that showed up. Yeah, I could get it because Man City have no fucking fans. Within literal minutes, on away soil, Real Madrid would concede to Gabriel Jesus. That would then be followed up by a goal from KDB that would double the scoreline. Real was clearly struggling and it was pretty painful, but Benzema would pull one back, assisted by Ferland Mendy. The first half would finish 2-1 to Manchester City, but they could have scored like 30 goals because of how many chances they had. Manchester City, with all their countless misses, were really giving a lifeline to Real Madrid in the second half. Real would enter the second half and immediately concede to Phil Foden. However, like I said, this was a very back-to-back extreme game. Vinicius Jr. then comes up with an absolutely incredible run where he would make the deficit just a little bit less by scoring this wonder goal. Bernardo Silva would allow Real Madrid zero time to celebrate, as Courtois would be nailed to the ground as Bernardo almost ripped the net off. Then Laporte's full-on dementia was shown as he forgot what sport he was playing and just touched the ball with his hand. Benzema, once given the penalty, converted it with a Panenka beautifully. During this match, Manchester City missed even more chances in the second half, and honestly, this was just such a huge help for Real Madrid going into the second leg. In the meanwhile, over the weekend, in La Liga, Real Madrid would be crowned champions with a handful of games still left to play. Rodrigo played the starring role by bagging twice in the game, although I doubt he'll play much of a role in the Man City game. Spirits high, the new La Liga champions waited patiently for the 4th of May to come, to be ready to face Manchester City in the second leg of the UCL semi-finals. Immediately in the game, Real Madrid were a lot better. They had some big chances, but unfortunately it wasn't enough, and when the second half started, Manchester City would get the better of them. Riyad Mahrez would score an honestly great strike and put Manchester City ahead 1-0 this game and 5-3 on aggregate in the 73rd minute. More chances would come and go, and with only a few minutes of additional time, Real were almost certainly out from the UCL, but it was still a good season. A semi-final appearance here, a Super Cup win, and getting the Liga crown back. This was a very decent seat. Oh my fucking god. To the surprise of everyone, Rodrigo chalked up something and gave them a consolation goal, or what at least seemed to spark some belief in the stands. Don't blink, because you're gonna miss it. City concede again, with Rodrigo scoring his second of the day. We didn't just explode at this point, as Pep Guardiola couldn't believe what he was seeing and was just holding on to his bald head. Just like last game, Man City were missing tons of chances, and this time they were made to pay. In extra time, Man City needed to play it safe, or otherwise they might get knocked out of the Champions League, handball by Man City in the box penalty for Real Madrid. In the 95th minute of extra time, goofy stuff from Manchester City would allow Real Madrid to get a penalty and Benzema to step up once more. The 95th minute, this penalty could see Real Madrid through to the final of the Champions League for the first time since 2018, and Benzema scores. Real Madrid would then pull through for the rest of the minutes that were left, and once they reached 120th, they had won the tie 6-5 on aggregate scores. I don't think you could write this better if you tried. Real Madrid would, funnily enough, just like in 2018, have to face Liverpool in the final. Their road was a very tough one to the final. They had to play the champions of France, champions of the world in Europe, and then the champions of England. While Liverpool had Benfica, Villarreal, and Inter, Real Madrid heading into the final had some exceptional news. Mbappe wasn't coming. This kind of came out of the blue, and I don't really know what more Real could have done to get Mbappe to come to the club, but I do know, but still, doesn't matter. Anyways, on the 20th of May, I came home from a birthday party and sat down to watch this incredible UCL final. Mo Salah earlier said that he had a score to settle. Let's see if he actually does anything about it. Courtois, instead of having water in his normal bottle, he instead drank the elixir of the gods, and I really think that's the only viable explanation for what we're about to see. Liverpool have plenty of shots, some pretty good, while others not so much. Overall, Real Madrid were definitely getting dominated by Liverpool, yet still in the late phase of the first half, they would score, but it would be disallowed. Now, if I speak, I am in big trouble, so I'm just gonna ignore this and say that personally, I would disagree. Liverpool would end the first half having quintupled the chances Real had, and still almost going on the back foot. Liverpool would come out in the second half with great tiki-taka, inverted false nine high-pressure football, while Real Madrid had the power of friendship, and an hour in, would bag through Vinicius Jr. Valverde made Van Dijk twerk for him while Trent had completely lost his man, and then Vinny bagged from Valverde's incredible pass. Trent was instantly getting a ton of flashbacks. This was of course made more painful by the fact that Liverpool had like 63 chances leading up to this point, for Real Madrid just to go ahead and take the lead first anyway. However, Liverpool would still keep going. They wouldn't give up, with Salah initiating most of the attacks. Tiba was, however, having absolutely none of it and made save after save after save, and in my opinion, single-handedly won the game for Real Madrid. And as the game ended, I think that he deserved the man of the match that he was rightfully given. Real Madrid had won their record 14th UCL title, and now they're really running off with that record miles. Historically, success was in this club's blood, but everyone saw Real Madrid as a wounded animal and one that couldn't challenge for much besides the league. But they had proven everyone wrong. They were placed as underdogs, outsiders, not even near favorites before the tournament, and they've just gone on to win it, playing easily all the best teams. To top it off, they had won the Super Cup, the League, and of course the Champions League now, and they're only missing the Copa del Rey. Why is the Copa del Rey so hard to win, goddammit? I promise you they could beat Brazil 2009 16-0 before they could beat a Luciano from the 3rd division in La Liga. Overall, I think this just proves that you can never really write the Los Blancos off, because they're still here, and they're here to stay. By the time I'm recording this, they're still at a tie with Liverpool, where they are currently holding a decent lead. I mean, they're absolutely dominating them, but it needs to be mentioned that there is still a second leg to play at the Bernabeu, so not much will change. Real Madrid is the greatest club there has ever been. There are great clubs for sure, but they are the greatest club to ever exist. And I think it's going to take a long time before anyone can even get close to their level. Sure, they'll have some heavy losses to rivals here and there. However, what truly matters is that this club was built to succeed, and they've been molded brilliantly. Top performers this season, honestly, everyone, down from people like Thibaut Courtois, Militao, Fernandes, up to the higher stars like Vini and Benzema, everyone had an incredible season and contributed enormously. Modric still aging like fine wine, same goes for Kroos really, Benzema finally proving himself, Vinicius and Rodrigo getting their name out there with a spotlight, same goes for Valverde. And I think the best way to put this is, I think I'm just excited to see what this club is going to do next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you sometime soon.